It was a foggy October evening in 1959 when the Silver Crest Express, carrying 62 passengers and 4 crew members, departed from a quiet rural station in northern Italy. The train was due to arrive at its next stop in just under 20 minutes. It never did. Somewhere in between, along a stretch of track that wound through jagged mountains and dark pine forests, the Silver Crest entered the Santa Elena Tunnel and emerged completely empty. Not a single person on board. Not a single trace of struggle. Only the echo of metal wheels on the rails and the eerie sight of vacant seats gliding past the platform. For decades, investigators, journalists, and conspiracy theorists have wrestled with the same maddening question. What happened inside that tunnel? At the center of our story is Emilia Riva, then a 24-year-old ticket collector working her first long-distance route. She was last seen by a fellow attendant just minutes before the train reached Santa Elena. Emilia's family never stopped searching for answers. Her younger brother, Marco, now an old man with trembling hands, still keeps her last photograph in a worn leather wallet. It's like they were plucked out of time, he says, his voice breaking. The disappearance became a chilling legend in the surrounding villages. Some claim the passengers were victims of a highly classified military experiment. Others insist the train passed through a time slip, vanishing into another era entirely. There are even those who whisper about a curse tied to the land, a debt that had to be paid. Official records list it simply as an unresolved mass disappearance. But in the basement of an abandoned railway office, an amateur historian named Lucia Benedetti recently uncovered something extraordinary: a single, dusty leather suitcase with a conductor's badge inside. Beneath it was a water-stained notebook containing a cryptic final entry. Lights flickering, loud hum in the air, passengers afraid, something is here with us. That notebook might hold the key to what really happened inside the tunnel, or it might lead to even darker questions we're not ready to face. Tonight, we retrace the last known journey of the Silver Crest Express. But be warned, the deeper we go, the more the lines between fact and myth will blur. And somewhere in the darkness of Santa Elena Tunnel, the truth may still be waiting. The Santa Elena Tunnel was built in 1912, carved through nearly 2 kilometers of solid limestone. Workers told of strange noises echoing in the rock, whispers like voices speaking in a language no one recognized. Many of them refused to work alone. Officially, these were dismissed as auditory illusions caused by wind and vibration, but the stories lingered. By the 1950s, the tunnel had become a vital part of Italy's rail network. The Silver Crest Express was its pride, a sleek, modern passenger service connecting rural villages to the industrial heart of the north. Emilia Riva had joined the railway the previous summer. Friends described her as warm and attentive, always carrying an extra thermos of coffee for the older conductors. She was meticulous about her duties, jotting down times and seat numbers in her pocket notebook, a habit that made her disappearance all the more bewildering. In the weeks before the incident, several small but unsettling events had been reported along the route. On one trip, a family claimed their wristwatches all stopped simultaneously just after entering the tunnel, only to restart upon exiting. Another passenger recalled seeing a sudden, blinding flash in the darkness, like a camera with no source. None of these accounts were ever investigated seriously until it was too late. On the night of October 29th, the Silver Crest's final journey began uneventfully. The passengers were a cross-section of post-war life: a young couple on their honeymoon, a widowed schoolteacher, 2 businessmen with suitcases of documents, a group of factory workers heading home. The manifest shows their names, but beyond the ink on that page, they cease to exist. What makes this case even more disturbing is the testimony of Carlo Venturi, the signalman stationed at the far end of Santa Elena Tunnel. He swears he saw the train's lights flicker inside, heard an otherworldly hum, not mechanical, not human, and then silence. When the train emerged moments later, the brakes hissed and sparks flew from the wheels, but no one was inside. The doors were shut, luggage still neatly stowed, half-empty coffee cups balanced on tables. It was as if the people had been erased in an instant, leaving only their belongings behind. For decades, Marco Riva pressed the authorities for answers. He submitted petitions, combed through declassified railway records, and even walked through the abandoned tunnel himself. But the deeper he dug, the more resistance he faced. Files went missing. Witnesses retracted statements. Some locals warned him to stop asking questions, saying the Santa Elena was not just a place, but a wound in the earth. Now, with the discovery of Amelia's notebook, the stakes are higher than ever. If her last words are true, something was inside that tunnel with them. Something powerful enough to take an entire train of people and leave no trace. And whatever it was, it has never been found. When Marco Riva reopened his sister's notebook, one line kept gnawing at him. "We are not alone in here." The words were underlined twice, her usually neat handwriting jagged, as though written in haste. What chilled him most was the timestamp. Just 3 minutes before the train was due to exit the Santa Elena tunnel. Marco had always believed Amelia's disappearance was more than an accident. But now, with this fragment of her final moments, his resolve hardened. Still, there was one problem. The notebook wasn't found by the authorities. It had been slipped anonymously through the mail slot of his home, wrapped in brown paper with no return address. Whoever sent it either feared being known or had something to hide. The police dismissed the delivery as a cruel hoax. "It's been 35 years, the inspector told him. "Let the dead rest." But Marco knew they were holding back. He'd seen the unmarked folder in the inspector's drawer, the one labeled Santa Elena/restricted. That file had to contain the reports that were supposedly lost. Meanwhile, an investigative journalist named Sophia Leone took an interest in Marco's story. She was known for uncovering government cover-ups, and her instincts told her that this case was not just about a train and its passengers. She had tracked down retired railway workers who whispered about an order that used the tunnel for more than transportation. They claimed the Santa Elena sat on ancient ground, a place feared by locals long before the railway existed, a place where people vanished even before trains were invented. But Sophia had her own moral dilemma. If she uncovered proof that the government knew about the disappearances, she would be risking her career and possibly her life. She'd already received 2 anonymous warnings to stop digging, the last one arriving as a folded note on her car windshield. Still, she couldn't walk away. Something about the haunted look in Marco's eyes made the story feel personal. The tension deepened when a parallel discovery emerged in the nearby village of Roccavecchia. During renovations of an old stone inn, workers broke through a wall to reveal a hidden chamber. Inside were objects coated in decades of dust, a woman's wool coat, a pair of men's leather gloves, and a child's rag doll. All 3 items matched the descriptions of belongings from passengers on the Silver Crest Express manifest. But there were no bones, no bodies. Just the eerie feeling that the owners had stepped out only moments before and never returned. As Marco and Sophia examined the items under the dim light of the inn's cellar, Sophia noticed something odd stitched into the lining of the coat, a tiny scrap of paper, brittle with age. Written in faded ink was a symbol neither of them recognized, a circle divided by 3 lines, intersected by a jagged vertical slash. "I've seen this before," Marco murmured, his voice low. "Amelia drew it in her diary when we were kids. She said it meant the place where the world folds in on itself." The air in the cellar seemed to shift, the shadows stretching along the stone walls. Outside, the wind howled through the narrow streets of Roccavecchia, carrying with it a sound that made both of them freeze, the distant, echoing wail of a train whistle. The cellar's air grew colder. Marco swore he could see his breath. Sophia kept turning the scrap of paper over, as though the jagged symbol might reveal its meaning if she stared long enough. "Where did your sister learn this?" she asked. "Marco Hesitativ, from an old man in our village. Everyone called him Il Custode, the keeper. He said the sign marked a threshold, but no one believed him." His eyes darted toward the cellar's narrow doorway, until the train disappeared. Before Sophia could respond, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoed above them. Dust rained down from the rafters. Someone was in the inn. The creak of floorboards drew closer to the stairs. Sophia extinguished the bulb with a sharp pull of the cord, plunging them into blackness. The footsteps paused. Then, a faint metallic scrape, like a key turning in a lock. "Faid, Marco whispered." They pressed into the shadows behind a stack of crumbling crates. The cellar door swung open with a groan. A beam of flashlight cut across the room, sweeping over the table where the coat, gloves, and doll lay. The light lingered for a heartbeat too long on the doll's button eyes before clicking off. The intruder retreated, footsteps fading. A door slammed somewhere upstairs. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same. Sophia's phone buzzed in her pocket, an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. A voice, distorted and low, "You have until midnight. After that, the tunnel opens." The call ended. No signal. Marco's hand trembled as he ran it through his hair. To Santa Elena. That's when the next maintenance train passes through. If this threshold opens, his voice broke off. They decided to head straight to the old railway control station outside the village, hoping to find any surviving logbooks from 1974. The walk there was silent except for the crunch of gravel underfoot and the occasional gust that rattled the bare branches overhead. Inside, the control room was abandoned. Layers of dust coating consoles and rusted levers. But one metal cabinet stood out. It was padlocked, yet the lock looked freshly oiled. Sophia knelt to inspect it, finding faint scratches around the keyhole, as if someone had tried to open it recently. Marco searched the nearby desk, eventually producing a ring of old keys from a drawer. The third one clicked. Inside the cabinet were files marked with the railway's seal and a folder labeled Silver Crest, Incident 1974. But before they could open it, the control room's overhead lights flickered to life. Through the cracked window, they saw two figures in long coats standing on the tracks, both wearing the same jagged circle emblem on armbands. One raised a hand, pointing directly toward the control room. "They know we're here," Sophia said. Marco grabbed the folder, stuffing it into his coat. They bolted for the back exit. Outside, the wind roared like a passing train, but the tracks were empty. They didn't stop running until the control station was a shadow in the distance. Marco's breath came in ragged bursts, the cold air cutting his lungs. Sophia clutched the folder against her chest, her fingers numb but unyielding. "We need to see what's in it," she said, already flipping it open under the dim glow of a roadside lamp. Inside were photographs, black and white, grainy, of the vanished family. But in one image, Marco froze. It wasn't just the family. Standing in the background, partially obscured, was his father. "That's impossible," Marco muttered. "He was in Milan in '74. Sophia turned another page. Handwritten reports detailed sightings of the family years after they were presumed dead. Always near abandoned tracks, always on foggy nights. The last entry was dated 6 months ago. Before they could process it, headlights flared down the road. A black sedan screeched to a stop beside them. Two men stepped out, the same code and emblem figures from the tracks. "Give us the file," one demanded, his voice unervingly calm. Marco tightened his grip on the folder. "Tell me why my father's in these photos." The man's lips curled into something that was not quite a smile. "Because he never left Santa Elena. And if you're not careful, neither will you." From the corner of her eye, Sophia spotted movement in the tree lean. A shadow detached itself from the darkness and stepped forward, another man. Older, weathered. His face caught the light. "Marco," the man said quietly. "It's me." It was his father, alive. The figures in coats stiffened. One reached inside his jacket, but the father raised a hand. "They're telling you half the story," he said, eyes locked on Marco. "The threshold doesn't take people. It chooses them." Sophia's mind raced. Chooses them for what? He hesitated. For what's on the other side? The sedan's engine roared back to life, and the coat-wearing men advanced. In a split-second decision, the father grabbed Marco's arm. "Come with me, now, or you'll never understand." Sophia stepped between them. "We can't just vanish into the dark with you. Not without knowing if we come back." Marco's father looked at her with something like pity. "No one comes back. Not the same. From the direction of the tracks came a deep, metallic groan, the sound of old rails shifting, as though something massive was pushing through. The air grew heavy, charged. The threshold was opening. The sound from the tracks grew louder, a deep, rhythmic pulsing like a colossal heartbeat. The air rippled, bending light, distorting the moon above. Marco felt it pulling at him, not with force, but with invitation. Once it's open, you can't stop it, Marco's father said, voice trembling. You can only choose whether to step through. The men in coats drew closer. One barked into a radio, "It's happening. Prepare containment." Containment? The word lodged in Marco's mind like a hook. "Marco," Sophia urged, "we can leave now, before this swallows us." But his father shook his head. "If you leave, they'll come for you again. They came for me in '74. I stayed to keep them from finding you." The metallic groan turned into a piercing wail as the space above the tracks split open, a jagged tear of shimmering light. Beyond it, shapes moved, indistinct, tall, watching. The pull became stronger, a whisper threading through Marco's thoughts. "Come and see." One of the coat men lunged for the folder. Sophia swung it away, but the papers scattered, catching in the wind, some sucked toward the rift. Marco's father stepped toward the opening. "They've been waiting for you, Marco. It's why you see the things others don't. It's why your life never fit here." Sophia grabbed his arm. "If you go in, you don't come back the same. He told us himself." Marco looked between her and his father, between the life he knew and the one he didn't understand. The coatmen shouted, the rift widening behind them, the air crackling like a storm about to break. Then Marco made his choice. He ran, not toward the rift, but toward the coatmen. Catching them off guard, he slammed one into the ground and yanked the strange metallic device from his belt. It hummed with energy. Without hesitating, Marco turned it on the tear. The rift shuddered, the light flickering. A low roar echoed from beyond. Not angry, but disappointed. The pull lessened. The whisper faded. His father's eyes went wide. "What have you done?" "Chosen," Marco said. The tear collapsed in on itself with a thunderclap, leaving only silence and the cold metal of the tracks. The coatmen scrambled away into the night. Sophia let out a shaky laugh. "It's over." But Marco wasn't so sure. As he looked down at the device in his hand, a faint glow pulsed from its center. Inside it, for just a second, he swore he saw the faces of the vanished family, watching him from the other side. And one of them smiled. The wind finally stilled. The glow from the device in Marco's hand faded to a soft ember, like a dying star. Somewhere far down the tracks, a lone owl called out, and the night seemed to breathe again. Sophia knelt, gathering the scattered papers before they could blow away for good. "These are all that's left of the family's case," she said quietly. "Their names, their faces, they're not erased after all." Marco's father stood a few paces away, staring at where the rift had been. He looked older now, smaller somehow, like a man who had been carrying something heavy for too long and had finally set it down. "They weren't taken by force," he murmured. "They stepped through because they believe it was better. I thought I was protecting you by staying here, but maybe I was just afraid." Marco slipped the device into his jacket. "You saved me, and now maybe we save them too, or at least gave them a choice they didn't have before." The coatmen were gone, but their presence still lingered in Marco's mind. They would be back. They always came back, but he wasn't the same person they had been hunting. Sophia joined him at his side, placing the folder in his hands. "The truth doesn't disappear just because someone wants it buried," she said. "You decide what to do with it now." Marco nodded. He thought of the faces he'd seen inside the device's glow, especially the small, fleeting smile from one of the missing. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like a message. "We remember you." They walked back toward town in silence, the tracks stretching endlessly behind them. Each step felt heavier and lighter at the same time. At the edge of the road, Marco stopped and looked over his shoulder one last time. The railway was empty now, ordinary, but he knew better. "They'll call us crazy if we tell them," he said. Sophia smirked faintly. "Then let them. The truth doesn't care who believes it." He thought about everything that had happened. The rift, the whispers, the choice. Somewhere in the space between fear and courage, he had found clarity. When you're given a door, Marco finally said, you don't always have to walk through. Sometimes, just knowing it's there is enough. They turned toward the faint glow of the town's lights and kept walking, their shadows stretching long behind them.